As an amateur bodybuilder, going pro is like the ultimate goal. It's a really hard thing to do. It's basically like going from college football to the NFL. I think they give out less than 50 pro cards a year in North America. Bodybuilding began for me really whenever I was a kid. I always gravitated towards huge muscular superheroes or Terminator, like Arnold Schwarzenegger was making movies whenever I was young, and Sylvester Stallone was making Rocky movies, and those were always the guys that I saw as superheroes. So for me, that was what I always wanted to be. I always wanted to be this larger-than-life character, and whenever I got into high school, I started buying bodybuilding magazines. That's where I found out about bodybuilding. But the internet wasn't really what it is now. There weren't like main pages for things. There weren't Facebook pages for bodybuilders. It was really tough to like find bodybuilders. And back then they were like these dungeon trainers who were in the basement in hoodies and metal music, and like they didn't take pictures, or a lot of them wouldn't even give interviews. They were just these hidden people. It was a totally different culture, and it was a hard culture to break into. So I started following the training that they would put in these magazines, and I started training like a bodybuilder. I even started taking weight gainer supplements. Well, really, that's all I could afford whenever I was young, but I wanted to do everything I could to be a bodybuilder. After high school, I continued to follow bodybuilding, but I ended up joining the military. And shortly after I joined the military, I was deployed to Iraq. I was there for a while. After I came home, we went to this, it's called a yellow ribbon ceremony, and it's basically for soldiers after they come home to teach you how to re-enter civilian life and cope. And one of the guys that I was in Iraq with, we hadn't seen this guy for like 3 or 4 months. Whenever he showed up, he had lost like 40 or 50 pounds, and he was lean, and everybody kept asking him, like, what are you doing? Like, why did you lose all this weight? You look awesome, what's going on? And he started talking about how he was gonna do a bodybuilding show. I still remember where I was standing whenever he said that, and it was like an explosion in my brain went off. I couldn't stop asking him questions. That is the guy who started it all. He's the one who opened the door for me into bodybuilding. He showed me how to get into it. He told me when the next show was, and I signed up for the next show, and 12 weeks later, I got on stage for the first time. I had no idea what I was doing. I just took bits and pieces of what this guy told me out of his diet, and I kind of threw it together, and I was training and doing cardio and did whatever I could to make it to the bodybuilding show. And my first show, I think I placed 3rd. I can't explain the experience because it was one of those things that's like, you only feel that thing one time in life. Winning a trophy at my first bodybuilding show is like a core memory for me, especially because my goal was just to look like I belonged on stage. Like, I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know what the other guys were gonna look like. I didn't know how I compared. I barely knew how to pose, but I was just so taken by the sport that it didn't matter. I was gonna be great in that sport one way or another. So after that first show, everything just snowballed from there. I got more serious about bodybuilding. I went up a weight class. At one point, I even hired a coach. Fast forward to a few years later, whenever I'm about 28, I'm completely focused on bodybuilding, but I was also dating this girl at the time, and we were pretty serious. She started getting annoyed with me, like being around the house so much and not doing a whole lot other than focusing on bodybuilding and whatever jobs I could do to support bodybuilding and pay my bills. So at the time, I was offered a job driving a truck. That left me 2 options. I could drive a truck, or I could open my own business. And my goal was always to get paid for training, for training in a gym or having something to do with bodybuilding. And by starting my own supplement shop, that allowed me to do what I'd always dreamed of doing, which was being paid to be a bodybuilder, essentially. So I chose to open a business, and that's how Barbenders was born. Eventually, Barbenders expanded. After the first year, I was able to move to a bigger location and also add a gym. Once it grew to that, it left me with another choice, which was to continue to grow my business or to continue focusing 100% on bodybuilding. And really, the business pulled so much of my time and energy away from bodybuilding, it kind of made the choice for me. I'm happy I made the decision. I'm proud of my business, but I turned 35 this year, and bodybuilders have a limited shelf life. If I don't go pro now, I'll never have another chance to. If I don't start now, I have no chance in the future, none. Because right now I already feel like I'm behind the ball, like I'm already working against time, or time's already working against me. So if I don't do it right now, if I try to start at 36, I have even less of a chance. It's not gonna happen. If I don't do it right now, that's it. That's been my life's goal. That's what I've worked my entire life for, is to go pro as a bodybuilder and to compete as a professional bodybuilder. I want to be great at one thing, and that one thing that I've always wanted to be great at is bodybuilding. And what does that make me if I didn't succeed in the one thing that I always wanted to do? I don't know. The way you get a pro card is you start out by going to a regional level show. Depending on the show, you'll place in the top 3 or top 2, and that'll qualify you to go to nationals. A national level show is where you get your pro card. So my goal is next September to go to the North Americans. To win your pro card there, you have to win your class, and then you have to place top 4 in the overall. Last time that I went to the North Americans was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and I was competing against 46 different guys. I ended up placing 15th out of 46 of the best bodybuilders in the country. So honestly, to me, it was a great turnout. I was super happy, and now, this time around, I plan on winning. I've done a lot of really hard things in my life, but by far, trying to win my pro card is definitely the hardest. I think they give out less than 50 pro cards a year to bodybuilders. It's one of those things that you couldn't possibly do it unless you are completely passionate about it and you give everything that you have to it. That's how difficult it is. There aren't people who just have it and they just show up and they do it. It doesn't work like that. Even if you have the best genetics in the world, it wouldn't matter if you don't know what you're doing. It truly is one of the hardest things that I've ever tried to accomplish.